What's going on, guys? So back again on the mod rod. This one kind of got put to the wayside. Wasn't really thrilled with the direction it was headed. I set up the rear steer. This was the Fijon FJ9 Bulldog chassis drift car. Had all that carbon fiber looking stuff, a ton of aluminum, really cool gearbox, really cool drivetrain and stuff. And I don't drift. I don't do that stuff much anymore. So I sat around, didn't have any luck selling it, so I decided to tear it apart, build a rat rod out of it. When I started this video, this had a solid front axle, one of the, to me, a semi-truck axles. And I'm sitting there staring at it, trying to figure out what I can do, how I can move this build forward, because it's kind of stalled. Oh yeah, four-wheel drive. So I have a RC four-wheel drive Yoda front axle. It's the only axle spare I've had laying around. And it's just been sitting around forever. It's scratched up. Those aren't really worth much. And think it would be worth selling. So I've just been sitting on it. It was well used. I think that was off of the old Yoda truck from RC four-wheel drive. That was their interpretation of a bruiser. Made some leaps forward today. I also took a couple steps back. So you saw me driving it. It is fast. So fast that I'm afraid we're going to need to put the beadlock rings on these wheels. These are the Proline Ascension buggy tires, the 2.2 buggy fronts. They're the perfect width for these Vanquish wheels. The backs kept coming off. I don't know if I can fit the beadlock rings. We may have to trim the beadlock rings down or file them down, because I don't want to cut the tires. I've had a lot of problems with that lately, trying to use tires that weren't intended for beadlocks on beadlocks. And yeah. But I did swap out to these wheels. I had the dualies, the little 155 with the mud grabbers or whatever they are on it. And they just didn't fit the bill. The all-terrain tread didn't look right. This is modern rat rod. And yeah, so I put these Vanquish ones on. And these, of course, have a 12mm hex in the front. And those solid axles I use are spindle. And I use a very varied assortment of pieces to adapt them to it. And the problem is the Vanquish have a slightly larger, I'd say it's a 13mm hub, and they like to use all their own stuff. The shaft and stuff on it's bigger, and the hole for the shaft, and it just wasn't working at all in the front. There was no way I could run those on that solid axle. So I started thinking, how can I get a 12mm hex on there? And then I saw my front Yoda axle just chilling. So the gearbox on this had part of the shaft did stick through, and it did have a flat edge on it, like a beveled edge, like you could clamp a drive shaft to it. And it's close. I out there whipping it around and stuff, and it did not come loose, so I think we're going to be alright with that. Everything else came loose, unfortunately. My hubs come loose, the cups on the axles came loose, motor screws came loose, but got a little cut down plastic RC four-wheel drive shaft in there. Got it as close to center as I could. You know, we got an offset pumpkin on the axle, so there's not much you could do. But it just looks sick. Yeah, the way the shocks are. But in swapping the axle out, I had to make it a 4-link as opposed to the 2-link, the radius arm style that I typically do. Yeah, so flipped the axle upside down, mounted a 4-link or 3-link truss, and added 2 more rods. Luckily, the mounts back there by the cab that I used from the drift car, I don't even remember what those were for originally. It had 2 holes, and my links were only on the bottom one. So I grabbed some more 129mm links. You can see they're all scratched up, very well used. Yeah, we made a 4-link, and it just works perfectly. This thing has perfect amount of movement, and we have ridiculous amount of flex. But as far as staying planted, it does that pretty well. But that led me to another problem that I was already facing with this one. We did set up the rear steering, and I'm having a lot of second thoughts about that right now. But I needed front steering, and putting the drive shaft and everything, that ate up all the space that I had for a servo, and the grill, and some, everything that was going to be going on up front. I had this little cheap servo. I don't remember where. I think I bought this for the WPL little Toyota crawler. And it's just been sitting around, but I picked that. It's actually better than the little cheap Tower Pro ones I bought for doing fake air ride and stuff with. It's a lot quieter, a lot smoother. So I used some interesting things to mount that. So on this side, it's just a piece of sheet metal tied into a bolt on the differential on the axle, and yeah, just bolt it through. The other side, however, is a lot more, just more recycled stuff. That is a, what was that? I don't even remember where that came from. I had two of them. I think it was a servo mount off of something I got from China. I don't know. But it's just a little L bracket basically. So I ran a longer bolt through the 4-link truss all the way through the axle, and out of the top put a spacer and threaded that down on top of it, and that gave me a very nice solid mount. Ideally, that's not the best looking steering setup. I know everybody wants me to do a cable drive steering, but I don't know. I've got some stuff to do cable drive. I'm just not really feeling it. It's going to be kind of bulky and cumbersome on the chassis, and especially with the axle this far forward, you're going to have all kinds of stuff running back. I was hoping to really get a good test drive in. This thing is, I ran over a bug. Nice bug guts on the front of it. I'm having some issues, and I think it's all electronics based. I can't remember who a viewer sent in this motor in ESC brushless setup, and for this build, and I had the motor in there forever, and I finally found the ESC, got it all hooked up, and it worked okay. I was getting a lot of chatter. There's a lot of slop in all these drive shafts going to the rear, so I thought, you know, it's just gear shims and stuff like that I need to work on. And eventually it just kind of quit working, and it would just sit there and click, and then it wouldn't do anything. Pulled up instructions online. This is a 60 amp programmable hobby power. It's one of those little cheapies you see everywhere, but it is 2 to 3 cell LiPo capable. So I didn't think I'd have a problem putting a 3 cell on it, and it got hot, and it got really hot. Didn't smoke, didn't fizzle out, but it got pretty hot. The motor got hot, the wires got hot, the battery got a little hot. So I was kind of freaked out about that because I'm still uneasy about all this LiPo stuff. And I really don't know much about the electronics, honestly. I've been doing RC for 30 years, and I've never been really into electronics. For me, it's all about this stuff, all this cool looking mechanics. But so I don't know. I pulled up some instructions online. I walked through some of the setup, and it just wouldn't do anything. It just kept flickering the light, and it was acting all kinds of funny. So I found this ESC, which my buddy Shane from work gave me. He gave me that in a couple LiPos. This is a 80 amp, big dog, and it has a fan on it and stuff. So I had to do a little work to get the battery terminals to stay connected. But I hooked it up, and it was great. So I get outside, and I do a couple passes to test it, turn on the camera, and it starts doing the same thing. Started glitching, started just chattering, basically. And then there towards the end, it just wouldn't do anything. And I came back in and checked the voltage on the 3 cell, and it was down to 8. And when I plugged it up, it was at 11.3. It was down to 8.4. So I don't know what's going on with all that. I've got to either get a different ESC that I can actually program, or yeah, do some troubleshooting. So any tips on that, comment below, because I really don't know much about all the electronic stuff. It's not really my area of expertise, so appreciate any help on that. So moving around back, the X-shock setup was kind of soft, so I came in and added some more springs on the outside of the shock. I also swapped the hubs on the Vanquish wheels on the back to the plus 6mm ones. I had those, and I bought the 0 offset, swapped them all out for the ramp truck. I already have a set on the ramp truck, but I opted to leave that color, the silver version of these wheels, on there. But it was a little bit narrower in the back than the front. I didn't really like that. I'm still not digging the I don't know. The front is further, it's longer now because of the 4-link and the 4-wheel drive. And I'm not digging the proportions. I either need more tire or a different body or something to make this really make me happy. But yeah, added some springs on here. Seemed to help. Got the width at least even to the front. And could not test the rear steering. I've got a Y adapter and all that, and hooked it up, and they of course went the same direction. So it was just going to crab walk one way or another. It wasn't going to actually turn. I'm having second thoughts about all of that. I'm even having second thoughts about this rear suspension. I'm digging the 4-wheel drive thing. I'm kind of leaning away from the independent rear, thinking about going to a solid axle, and yeah, just get a different look out of it. But I don't know yet. Nothing's set in stone. Just brainstorming today. We got a lot of progress done. Fitment and packaging in here is a little bit tough. I had it good the first time. Had the receiver up here, the ESC back here, and the battery on this side attached to our center spine. And that all fit real well. Body went on, no problems. But this gigantic 80 amp ESC did not really fit anywhere very well, and the wires are a little short for reaching the motor. And yeah, so I swapped it around. I couldn't get the body on good for the test run. So right now I've got the rear servo disconnected because, like I said, it won't do what we need to do. These tires have lost a bit of rubber, and it was turning just because of the torque. So it would start going, it'd come back, and it'd be a little more every time. So definitely may look into locking that out or doing something different on the rear altogether. But overall, like I said, the clattering it was doing, I believe, was just the glitching of the motor and the speed controller. But there is a lot of slop here in the rear. Got a lot of play in this pinion spur on the rear diff. Got a lot of play at each of these drive shafts. So I don't know what the answer is just yet, but you know, we're not in any hurry. The belts and everything held up fine, even under extreme acceleration. I was worried about some of those coming off, but everything up here seems like it's pretty solid. The shaft that goes to the front drive shaft goes through 2 pulleys, and that was the shaft that drove the pinion for our front diff on the original car. Now I haven't taken that out, and it's a good thing I didn't, because I have that shaft through there. But I may end up taking this spur gear off, just because that's more something else driving from the motor that doesn't really do anything. It's just there sucking power. Not that this thing really needs any more power, but it has been overall a productive day. This thing was so close to driving, and now we've got the 4-wheel drive option. I would love to have done that before on other rat rods, but there's no transmission that has it's low profile, that has a front output, and this was the closest thing that I've come up with for that. Sort of running, 3 or 4 sections of drive shaft all the way from the middle of the vehicle. I did forget one big thing that I think after driving it the little bit I got to, I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. The rear is overdrive. So we got different gearing now. The front diff is whatever gear ratio those crawler axles are, and the rear is 4-wheel drive drift car. So it was not enough to make it spin out constantly, but it was just enough to it would push. You could see it. It would start walking a little bit sideways. It actually looked pretty cool. So I don't think that's going to be an issue just yet. So anyways, I appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Keep it scale.